Today I've got a really jank build for you. This is a challenge build that came from our amazing Patreon, Spookwoop. Spookwoop challenged D&D Daily to make a build that uses the Armorere Artificer's ability to don and doff armor efficiently in battle. That is a whack challenge, my friend, but we're gonna go ahead and tackle it today. Let's do this. So given our challenge, we know that we need to be an artificer, and we know that we need to have a form that gets benefits from having no armor. And the only two classes that can really benefit from being armorless are monk and barbarian. Artificers use intelligence, monks use wisdom and dexterity, barbarians use strength and dexterity and constitution kind of primarily. So what we know right off the get-go is that we are going to be a very stat inefficient build. So how are we going to figure this out? Well, let's begin with the lineage. Now you could go with a ton of different lineages in this build, but personally, I went with Deep Gnome for 3 reasons. The first reason is that we are going to be taking a dexterity half feat. Now, dexterity half feats are largely bad, but one kind of stood out to me, and it was the gnome specific feat, Fade Away. Now, I have never used Fade Away in a build before, and I love an opportunity to try something new, so I took it here. And as far as dexterity half feats go, it has better synergy with this build than any of the other ones. Reason number 2 is that we get advantage on all of our mental saves when it comes to saving against spells. Now, because we are such an stat inefficient build, we really might have some bad saving throws, so getting advantage on those saving throws is a huge boon. Third and finally is just gnomes have great cherries on top. They get a couple extra spells and they have the best starting dark vision in the entire game, so we're happy to pick that up here. Now as for our stat lineup, dexterity is by far the most important, so we want to put 2 points in there right off the get-go, maximize it at 15, so we start with 17, and that way when we grab our half feat we can bump it up to 18 right away. And it's going to be what we push more than anything else. Now after that comes constitution, then comes wisdom, but we also need to have at least 13 in intelligence. As for strength and charisma, we are just going to be completely dumping them. When it comes to our leveling structure, we're going to be going 3 levels into Armorere Artificer, then we're going to be going the remainder into Kensei Monk. So let's talk about those first 3 levels of Artificer. Well, that first level we're going to get constitution saving throws, and because we're investing so heavily in dexterity and eventually get evasion and have absorb elements, I really feel like we cover our dexterity saving throws, so I didn't want to start monk. I would rather get a boost to our constitution saving throws, even though they're not going to be used all that much. I just felt it was a bit better than what dexterity offered us. So we're going to start off with medium armor and a shield, but once we get that 3rd level in artificer, we're going to switch over to heavy armor, eventually getting plate. But once we start taking monk levels, we're going to have to drop that shield. Artificer is also going to give us spells. As for our cantrips, at the beginning of the game, I might take a combat cantrip, but our intelligence is really low, so it's really not going to be good for us, and we're going to be better off just using a light crossbow and our better than normal dexterity. So that means that I'm actually going to be focusing my cantrips on utility cantrips. Things like message or mending stand out to me. Past that, we move into our spells. Again, our intelligence isn't very good, so we really want to be working around that negative. I like absorb elements. Absorb elements is going to help us buffer any sort of elemental damage. It covers a lot of what we're going to cover with dexterity saving throws, so it's not going to be the best forever, but in these early to mid levels, it's going to really help us out when it comes up. I'd also take Cure Wounds here. We're obviously not going to be the biggest spellcaster ever. We only get 2 spell choices. We can only cast a few a day, but with Cure Wounds, we can do an emergency pickup of an ally if it's really required. More importantly than our spells, we're going to be getting infusions here. Now, infusions are a big deal for an Armorere Artificer, and I'll explain why. So what we're going to pick up is enhanced weapon and enhanced defense. Enhanced weapon gives us a +1 to hit and to our damage. Now, why that's so important is as an armor, we debuff enemies when we hit them. We make them have disadvantage on all of their attacks against anyone besides us. So by having a more likely to hit attack, we're more likely to debuff our enemies. So that +1 is very important. Additionally, we're going to have +1 to our defense because they have disadvantage to attack everyone but us. Now they're going to want to target us, so having a +1 to our AC is going to be very important. Now those are our combat days. On our off combat days, one I would really mention is the Spell Rot Tattoo with Find Familiar. This means on a day where we're not in combat, we can create a familiar that we can use to scout and can use in combat, and it's just really efficient use of our resources. The second one I would use outside of combat, honestly you could do a ton of different ones, but it's hard to go wrong with a bag of holding, so I'm going to grab that here. So up to this point, we've been standing in the back line using a light crossbow, and that's basically it. Just trying to survive really until we hit level 3. Now once we hit level 3, we're going Armorere Artificer. Now eventually we're going to want the Guardian armor. That way we can run up and fight people. But this level, you have to remember that we have bad strength and just okay intelligence. We really want to be attacking with dexterity. So for now, I'm going to be taking the Infiltrator armor style, and that way we can have a ranged attack that does extra lightning damage on top of it for this level only. Next level, we're going to go into Monk, and we're going to get Martial Arts, which allows us to use our dexterity in the Guardian armor, and then we'll switch over to Guardian armor and be a frontline tank from then on out. Other than that, we really don't get much from Monk here. Because we are fully armored, we're not getting Martial Arts bonus action attack. It's really just allowing us to play our armor frontline style with dexterity. At level 5, we do get key points, and key points are really important for this build. So for now, we can punch someone, make them attack everyone but us at disadvantage, and then use bonus action patient defense, and that way they have disadvantage attacking everyone. Fantastic defensive synergy. At level 6, we're going Monk 3, the Kensei. Now the Kensei allows us to turn our gauntlets into Kensei weapons, as well as a longbow. I would say at this point, our second mode comes online, and that second mode is going to look like this. We use our action to disengage our armor, and now we're going to have a longbow in hand. We're going to have enhanced movement speed by being a monk, and then we're going to be able to use Kensei's bonus action to give all of our attacks additional d4 of damage. This mode has the advantage of being able to move extremely quickly, be able to attack people at long ranges, get into cover, and it doesn't require any resources. That's why we'd split. Let's say that we need to chase down someone. Well, let's go into our speed form, chase them down, and start archering them. Or we've ran out of resources, we're out of key points, we've taken a lot of damage. Okay, let's switch into our ranged mode, get away from the fight, go get into cover, and then begin helping our allies with long range damage. Another way I could see this form being useful is if we were on an infiltration mission. We don't want to have that heavy armor clomping around, so we turn it off and now we can be really stealthy. At level 6, we likely have +3 to dexterity, and we likely have +2 to our wisdom. If we're doing point buy, it might be a little bit variable, but that's 15 AC with our armor off, and it's going to be 19 AC with our armor on, assuming we have plate and that +1 enhanced to defense. So that is a significant drop to our armor, don't get me wrong, but we get a ton more mobility to utilize our terrain to our advantage, so we can get full cover, half cover, partial cover. Now next level, at level 7, we're getting our feat, and that feat is going to be Fade Away. This is going to let us do several different things. First, it's going to round out our dexterity, so now we have 16 AC, kind of buffering that defense, as well as increasing all of our attack options, making our debuff more likely to hit. Dexterity just does so much for us. Additionally, Fade Away allows us once per short rest, when we take damage, we can go invisible as a reaction. So what's really cool about this is we can go debuff as many enemies as possible, and then once they attack us, we can just disappear. So now their only option is to attack our allies at disadvantage. That's pretty cool. Because Fade Away gets restored on a short rest, as do all of our monk key points, we really appreciate those short rests. Now once we hit level 8, we finally get extra attack, and extra attack, we've been missing it, man. It is a big deal for this build, for several different reasons. First off is that most of the debuffers, the tanky debuffers, they can debuff one enemy per turn. The nice thing about the armor is we can debuff as many as we can attack, as long as we're using our Thunder Gauntlets. So now we can debuff 2 people, but that's not all we can do. Let's say there's one really dangerous enemy, so we don't need to debuff them twice. What we can do is we can attack with our main attack, Thunder Gauntlets, debuff them. Now our next attack, we can use an unarmored attack. And by doing this, by being a Kensei Monk, we get +2 to our AC. So now they have disadvantage on attacking anyone else, and now when they attack us, we get additional AC to make it even harder to hit us. Great synergy there. Additionally, we're getting focused aim. Focused aim allows us, if we miss, to spend some key points to try and get a hit. This is fantastic for this build, because if we miss, we didn't debuff anyone. Now we can spend some key points, nail them, and we've debuffed them, but not only that, at level 3, we got key fueled strikes, which we haven't been able to use up to this point. But now that we're spending key points during our action, now we can do a bonus action attack, which can also debuff enemies. So now we can debuff up to 3 enemies, or we can debuff 2 and still get +2 AC to ourselves. So we have fantastic versatility on the amount of people we can pressure. And we have fantastic accuracy because of focused aim. Now, at level 9 or Kensei 6, we get the ability to, even when we hit, to spend a key point during our action just to do some bonus damage. Normally terrible, but it also allows us to do our bonus action attack. So by being a Kensei, it doesn't matter if we miss or hit on our turn, we always have something to spend some ki on to get bonus action attacks whenever we need them. Additionally, we're getting another Kensei weapon, which we can now choose the longsword. Now my thinking is that normally when we take our armor off, it's going to be because we've ran out of resources, either health or key points, and we're wanting to play at a bigger distance and do some more hit and run archer stuff that the Kensei is so good at. However, However, we now have a third option. We can take our armor off and use a longsword in melee combat, and that's going to give us a bonus action unarmored strike. So we're essentially taking away our team's defense to do a little bit more offense. So it's kind of like a higher risk, higher reward type playstyle where we want to be really aggressive up front, but I think it's cool that we do have a third playstyle in this build. I think that's pretty neat. Given the challenge that I was given, I'm really happy with this build. I'm not going to say it's the most powerful build ever, but I do think it's very versatile and a lot of fun. And I think it's going to have some really cool moments. One that stands out to me is we're in our armor form, right? But we've decided we want to switch to our archer form. Instead of disengaging like we might normally do, what we're going to do is we're going to run, and they're going to get their opportunity attack against us, but we're heavily armored. There's a good chance it misses. And as we're running away, we use our action to make all of our armor bleed out, however you want to flavor it, but I'm thinking like Iron Man, where it just kind of shifts back into a backpack or something like that. Then we get a boost to our movement speed, so as we're running away, all of a sudden we start running away much quicker, and we can get behind a tree, whip out our bow, and get ready for next turn. So instead of using disengage, we're using essentially Doff armor. That's a cool moment, and I think when those moments come up, this build is going to feel really, really cool. But I think there's a million different ways we could have approached this build. What would you guys have done? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to give another shout out to our amazing Patreon, Spookwoog. This was an awesome challenge, Spook. I look forward to your next one. If you want to join our Patreon, we have a ton of awesome content. There's exclusive content, early releases, and because it's kind of a separate messaging system, I'm more likely to see your build suggestions. But with that, my friends, I hope you have yourselves an incredible day, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you then.